This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon.
Why do we have to pay for public transit? Shouldn't it be free like healthcare? That would be good for the environment, for low-income people, for traffic and congestion. Right?
The basic problem with free public transit is that money is scarce and there's a conflict or a trade-off between making transit free and making it better. Before the pandemic, my city collected $620 million a year in fare revenue. That was about 46% of the operating budget. That's money spent running the system, things like salaries, fuel, maintenance, and so on. Take that away and we'd have to drastically cut service. The system would be gutted. Obviously, free transit advocates are not arguing for that. They're arguing essentially for the government to provide an additional $620 million a year to eliminate fares while maintaining service. And you know what? I would love for the government to put more money into public transit like that. But the problem is, if the provincial government offered us another $620 million a year, should we spend that making the same service free? Or should we spend that making our transit system better? Here's why I focus on better service more than free transit. When I think about the main weakness of transit relative to driving right now, it's not cost. Transit is already cheaper than driving. The average cost of owning and operating a car is well over $1,000 a month. It can be lower if you're frugal, sure. If you buy a cheap used car, do your own maintenance, and don't drive much, or you siphon off gas from your neighbor or something. But there's no way you're matching the $105 cost of a transit pass here. Transit can be more expensive in some situations, like if you already own and insure a car, and you're just comparing gas on a particular trip to a transit fare, or if you're traveling in a group. But I'd still say the biggest weakness of transit, the main reason people don't take it, isn't cost. It's speed, reliability, and convenience. The money you'd have to spend eliminating fares could instead be spent running more buses, building more subways and light rail, redesigning the network for easier transfers. Why is this person asking? I might have to start taking Ottawa Transit to work. How screwed am I? It's not cost, even though Ottawa's fares are a little higher than peer cities. It's the fact that 22 minutes in the car equals an hour and 10 on transit. Let's say this person values their time at $18 an hour, minimum wage in Ontario. Cutting 30 minutes off their transit commute, 15 minutes each way, saves them $9 a day in time. That's probably more money than they spend in total on transit, fares or passes. Rider surveys back me up on this. The MTA in New York surveyed bus riders. What would most increase satisfaction for them? Improvements to wait times, crowding, and reliability. The cost of a ride was further down the list. Victoria, British Columbia. Riders rank reliability, frequency, and simple routes as top priorities for future investment. Actual studies of transit ridership also back this up. Transportation researcher Todd Littman did a big review of dozens of studies. He found that improving service attracts more people to transit than cutting fares, especially for people currently driving. A common response is that we shouldn't have to choose between better service and free fares. We can and should have both. And yeah, if the provincial government came to us and said, here's an extra $1.2 billion a year, make transit free and boost service, I would not complain. Hell yeah, let's do it. But I don't expect that to happen anytime soon, so I keep my eye on the biggest priority. Also, like a lot of other cities, we've had to cut service in the past few years. That's from a decline in fare revenue during COVID, meaning inflation and cost pressures.
This bus went from 180 southbound trips per day to 72.
That is not a small service adjustment. That's taking a sledgehammer to a really important bus. Fortunately, that's an extreme example. Most bus routes were not hit that hard. But still, expanding service isn't even our first priority. Restoring the service we previously had is. The point of this video is not that transit affordability doesn't matter. Just that eliminating fares for everyone is probably not the right approach in most places. Last election here, multiple parties argued for social fares. cheaper monthly passes for low-income households. That still costs money that you could instead spend on service, but it was $40 million annually to provide relief to the people who need it most. That's a lot easier to justify than the $600 million or whatever that it would take to completely eliminate fares for everybody. When you dig into the research, and I'd recommend everybody intrigued by free fares to do so, there's a lot to learn. That research review by Todd Littman found that when fares get particularly high, ridership starts to suffer more. So if you have fares that are much higher than peer cities, that should maybe set off alarm bells. Off-peak riders are more sensitive to fare prices. So, providing a discount outside of rush hour or on weekends might disproportionately boost ridership, if your system can do that. It seems that increasing fares hurts ridership more than lowering fares helps ridership. So fighting fare increases might be more useful than lowering fares or eliminating fares. Something I've noticed about free fare advocacy is that it often comes from environmentalists and poverty activists who have good goals, but don't necessarily specialize in transit. Actual subject matter experts on transit, people who write books on the topic, are much less enthusiastic. Their experience is that the best way to help low-income people get to work on time, or to get people out of their cars to help the environment, is to make transit better rather than to make it free. They know that none of the world's top transit cities have free fares for everyone. London, Paris, Berlin, Shenzhen, Tokyo, Hong Kong. Places like that, where transit is extremely well used, often more fast and reliable than driving. They all have different pricing models. Shenzhen is very cheap. London has expensive fares but weekly caps. Berlin has cheap monthly passes. Tokyo has employer subsidies for commutes. But none of them, or any of the other top transit cities in the world that I know of, has completely free fares. That doesn't definitively prove that it's a bad idea. But if you're an aspiring transit city, copy what the best are doing is a pretty good heuristic. There are some cities out there with free transit though. Why did they do it? And are there any lessons we can learn? Albuquerque, New Mexico implemented permanently free buses as of 2023, but the fact that almost all riders were low income was a big justification for the change. In strong transit cities, transit is important for low income people, but it's also widely used by the middle class and even high earners, people who can more easily afford to pay. Albuquerque didn't get a ton of ridership, and so it didn't collect a lot of money in fares. Just $3 million a year, or 4% of their $67 million operating budget. Apparently not even enough to cover the cost of collecting fares. This can be the case with some lower ridership cities, or rural areas where the population isn't that big compared to the area served. Link Transit in rural Washington state was also at 4%, when they decided it just wasn't worth it to collect fares. If fares in your city cover 20, 30, 40, 50% though, you're in a different situation. Fares are not just a rounding error. They're an important source of funding that sustains your transit. My city fell from 46% pre-pandemic to 32% after. That's resulted in service cuts. I hope that ridership and fare revenue recover to pre-pandemic levels over the next few years. This isn't just big cities. In Halifax, Nova Scotia, a smaller city than Albuquerque, fares bring in about 35 million Canadian, covering almost 30% of the operating budget. If Albuquerque wants to match Halifax ridership numbers, 30 million trips per year versus 8 million, they're going to have to improve service. And the city seems to be aware of that. They're revamping the bus network and upping service, at least back to pre-pandemic levels. But that raises an interesting question. If they get to the point where ridership is much more substantial, do they consider reintroducing fares in order to fund even more service? Maybe build some light rail? Multiple cities in France have also introduced free transit. Dunkirk saw bus ridership approximately double, but that wasn't just free fares. They also overhauled their bus network and boosted service. They grew their bus fleet, introduced high-frequency routes, bus lanes, signal priority. Today, they have 4 routes that run every 10 minutes or better. That's pretty good for a city of 100,000, a metro area of 200,000. One government official from Dunkirk pointed out that nearby Calais, which also introduced free transit but didn't overhaul its bus network, saw a much less dramatic increase in ridership. How exactly did Dunkirk afford to make buses free and better? First, France has a payroll tax, the Versement Mobilité, which provides more money and more stable funding than most other countries have for transit. Second, this tax was raised to pay for a new arena, but that was unpopular, so a new mayor cancelled it and redirected the money towards buses. I'm actually not sure how a tax meant to fund transportation projects was able to be directed towards an arena in the first place, but multiple sources mention this, so I think it's true. Third, fare revenue in Dunkirk covered 10 to 15% of expenses. That's not as low as Albuquerque's 4%, but it was still much less dependent on fares than bigger cities like Paris and Lyon. There's still a trade-off between service and fares. If Dunkirk still collected fares, they could fund even more service, maybe even build a tram. But doing both means, at the very least, not neglecting the priority of service. And that's what I worry that a lot of the free fare discourse does. Even in France, where free transit is gaining ground and a lot of people say they would take transit more if it was free, even more people say that they would up their use of transit if it was higher quality. Another free transit city, Tallinn, Estonia since 2013. One detail though, free transit is only available to residents of the city. That's because one of the key motivators of the program was to encourage more people to register as residents, which entitles the city to a €1,000 share of your national income tax each year. It was estimated in 2013 that 40,000 people who lived and worked in Tallinn were registered as residents of other cities and towns. Making transit free has, so far, made them money by encouraging people to register. But that can't necessarily be transferred to other countries without that same tax quirk. You can't discuss free transit without first asking, how much does my city collect in fare revenue? Ideally pre-COVID, because if fare revenue falls and it's not replaced so we have to cut service, we can't exactly say, great, now we're less reliant on fare revenue. The strongest case for free transit is in systems where fare revenue barely covers the cost of collecting fares, especially rural and small-town transit, but also some lower ridership cities. The next strongest case is when it's politically and financially feasible to combine the introduction of free transit with a big service boost. It's also why France, with its unusually robust funding mechanism, is where we're seeing a lot of these free transit projects. Again, if you can inject a bunch of money into the system, maybe you'd be better off putting it all into service. But at the very least, you're not neglecting service. On the other hand, I am against free transit for cities like mine, where transit is pretty well used. Fare revenue is substantial, rush hour crowding is real, and we have the potential to be a much stronger transit city if we run more buses and build more trains. At the very beginning, I asked why transit isn't free like healthcare is here in Canada. Actually, most universal healthcare systems do have modest cost sharing. Canada is actually kind of unusual in being completely zero fee for covered medical services, along with the UK. In Norway, for example, a consultation with a GP is the equivalent of €16. An X-ray is €35. There's a cap of about €300 per year, 500 Canadian dollars. Children and low-income pensioners are exempt. Even in Canada, many social programs are not completely free. Here in Quebec, subsidized daycare is $10 a day, not $0. So modest user fees are compatible with accessible, high-quality public services. The Canada Health Act bans user fees, though. We might be more sensitive about paying for healthcare because we worry that it's a slippery slope towards a US-style system that can bankrupt you. But there's no slippery slope with transit. We already have fares. We're discussing whether to remove them. And my biggest worry with transit is not that it's going to bankrupt people. It's that it's not going to be fast, frequent, and reliable enough to compete with driving. In the end, I don't have a philosophical opposition to transit being free. I just think that in most cities, the bigger priority is to run more buses and build more trains.